Good and welcome to the Sport by Takri Coffee Chat. Today with me I have Alex Drummond from B Collective joining me to talk volunteers. Normally you see Mick sipping away on a coffee in a cafe out in the Waitaki region, but today you're joining Alex and I from the comforts of our offices as we are in different parts of the country. But before we get into the juicy information for our clubs and community, I want to start with you, Alex. I remember when we first caught up, you mentioned you were heavily involved in football for a number of years, and looking into your LinkedIn profile, you've had a number of coaching roles within football. So what got you into coaching football?
Look, kia ora Javeed, kia ora e te whānau, ko Alex Drummond toka ingoa. I've always loved football right from a very young age when I was 3 or 4, playing for my local club down in Dunedin. And yeah, I don't know what it was that attracted me, but I've just played ever since I can remember, right from the ages of 4 through to even now, just having kick-arounds with friends.
Yeah. So I think, thinking about that first coaching experience, what was the first team you ever coached?
Nice. So when I moved to Wellington to start a teaching job, I kind of realized that I didn't quite have as much time to play, but I wanted to get involved still in football, and I was trying to find the right way to do that. And yeah, I was working at a school, Wellington College, and they had a pretty big coaching committee there, a pretty big environment. So yeah, it was really, I just went and met the sports director and said, I'd like to give coaching a go. Have you got any teams that I could play around with? And he said, yep. 3rd11 would love somebody to be able to run some sessions and look after them. I think they'd had a parent coach for most of their kind of history. So yeah, it was my first kind of chance to explore coaching with them.
Yeah. And so, your foray into coaching and volunteering was essentially going and seeking out an opportunity. But what kept you coming back? I see that you've done a whole heap of roles since then.
Yeah.
What kept you coming back into volunteering and coaching in those roles?
I think for me, it was the love of working with people and the love of kind of being able to provide an environment for them where I felt they could grow. And I don't know if it was because I was teaching at the time as well, but it was a way for me to stay engaged in a sport that I loved, and stay working with people and feel like I was actually kind of able to make a difference and contribute to them growing both in football and kind of as people.
Yeah. That's really cool, and I guess you can have a real impact as a coach on the way people develop, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously people drop out of volunteering at points in time, and from my understanding, you don't coach anymore. What was the reason that you stopped?
Yeah, great question. So I mean, I started very much in the amateur space, but the more I did it, the more I loved it, the more I wanted to learn more. So, as a volunteer coach, I started doing some coaching qualifications, some football coaching qualifications. And kind of the more I did that, the more I kind of fell in love with this idea of kind of doing it professionally, and did some badges and, flew to Auckland for some courses, and then had the opportunity for a few years to do some paid coaching. And I think in my mind, that kind of transitioned me into professionalizing and wanting this to be a bit more of a pathway for my kind of future. But then, like many volunteers, I ended up overdoing it, trying to work full time and coach multiple football teams. So in the end, yeah, I took a break for a couple of years. I just wanted to kind of get back to the love of why I did it in the first place. I think I fell into the trap of overdoing it. But yeah, I'm at the stage now where I've had a bit of a break for a couple of years, and I'm actually kind of looking now to get back into that community space and just removing that money, that professionalism from it, because I think what I loved about it is kind of what I want to get back into and do.
So what would be your best how would I say? What's your best memory of being a volunteer coach? So you say you went into a paid position, but what's your best memory as a volunteer coach?
Yep, I think I was never in it to win. For me, it was never about win. It was always about the youth development space. But I think seeing the young people's excitement and joy when you win a final, or when they've put in all this hard work and they get something out of it, is just so exciting, that reward. So I think kind of being able to support them to get to a stage where they were so excited. I think our 3rd11 might have won a trophy on penalties in the last game or something like that. It was some thing that they were, it was just the 3rd11 in a school competition. None of them were going to be professional football players, but just the excitement from that kind of that team camaraderie and them having achieved something was was just so rewarding. And I think that's what kept me getting back, is just the joy and excitement from that team of being a collective, of feeling rewarded for all the effort they put in, was kind of probably my most lingering memories.
So you say that you're wanting to potentially, you're ready to go back to volunteer and do some stuff.
Yes.
What are you looking for in a volunteer role that's going to be like, yeah, this is for Alex?
Yeah, look, I think for me, it's always about feeling cared for. Like I would like to be in an environment where I feel part of a wider team. There's support, there's interest. I'm not just kind of thrown into the deep end and just left to fend for myself. And you know, support doesn't mean financial support. It doesn't mean anything in particular. It's just kind of being in an environment where I feel welcomed, where there is care, and where there is kind of interest in how I'm doing and how I would like to grow. I think for me, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's cool. You've just segued into the next question that I've got, so it's really good. You know, as a coach, you know, it's important to know your players, but you know, in your role as a volunteer, how important do you think is it for administrators to know about their volunteers?
I think it's vital, because everybody's a person at the end of the day. I think if you don't know who's volunteering for you, then it's harder to kind of remember that they're people and that they have lives and they have careers and families and relationships, and you know, they need the same kind of care that the players need. You know, sometimes they just need a break. Sometimes, you know, things are going on that they need time for. So I think from my experience, you know, on football committees and as a coach, like the clubs that know who's volunteering are the most successful, because a volunteer that feels cared for, loves what they're doing, gives a better experience for the players and makes sure they feel cared for and belong as well.
That's really cool. So I guess, you know, there are times that you say that if they don't know, and I've heard stories of coaches and administrators that have felt like, you know, the club chairman hasn't known my name. But have you ever had an experience where you weren't recognised or acknowledged or seen as a volunteer or a coach?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I coached for a club, and kind of initially as an assistant coach, and then took over as the head coach when the main coach went away for a while. Yeah, and kind of, you know, gave my weekends and 2 days a week and all the evenings of planning and everything that goes into trying to provide a good environment. Yeah, and then at the kind of end of season kind of barbecue get together, one of the club chairman and someone from the committee came along to thank the club and just had no idea who I was. And it just, you know, it sucked, you know, especially putting in that time, and you just kind of felt, well, if they don't even, you know, care enough about me to recognize who I am, then why would I want to go back and coach them? And I didn't. I wanted, you know, I didn't want to coach for a space that I felt like I'd been taken advantage of and used, and they hadn't even bothered to learn who I was. Yeah, it was crap.
I mean, and if we flip that on its head, and I mean, in terms of your experience or even, you know, seeing stuff, have you seen someone that's acknowledged or recognized their volunteers well, and you've been like, oh, that's really neat, or something like that?
What examples can I think of? Yeah, I think I've worked for clubs before that really make an effort to get all the volunteers together, for a drink, for coffees, or have regular catch-ups and communication ways, that when you join as a volunteer, then you meet, you know, part of the wider committee. The committee comes to games and makes effort to get to know you. Yeah, so I think, and when you have a bad experience, you really notice the difference. You know, I guess you understand that everybody's busy, but I think the clubs that make an effort, and the clubs that I've worked at that have made an effort to get to know who I am, I've definitely felt a lot more valued in them.
So I guess, you know, moving on to kind of the work that you and I have been doing, and we've been working on a pilot out here in the Waitaki region to support clubs and schools to use a platform to be collective. Do you want to just tell everyone what it is, and you know, and what makes it so great?
Definitely. So Be Collective, yeah. So it's an online platform for the whole of community, whether you're a volunteer looking for ways to engage and connect and build your skills and kind of get a record of what you've been doing, or you're an organization who's looking to find more volunteers, who's looking to track what they're doing, to manage them, to report and get a bit of an idea of what your club's doing. Yeah, it's kind of an all-in-one community hub for people to network and share and connect and collaborate.
Yeah. So we talk about it's a way to connect with people or get some volunteers. Apart from advertising, what do you think is the hook? Do you think will get people in? When you're looking for volunteers.
I think if you're looking for volunteers, what it provides for you is a way to share everything you're doing with anybody else in your community. So it's not just a tool just for the sporting sector or just for the not-for-profit space. It's an all-in-one community hub. So there are schools involved, there's sports clubs, there's charities. So it kind of gives you a far more diverse reach of people. And the whole premise behind Be Collective is that it kind of simplifies so many of your kind of club processes into one space. So instead of having 10 different spreadsheets, 6 different platforms all doing different things and spending 6 hours a day on them, you put them all in one place, takes a fifth of your time, and then you've got that spare time to actually do what you want to do with your day.
So you talk about making life easier for the club. I mean, do you want to maybe talk about some examples or some parts where the platform has made life easier for other groups that potentially have worked with you? And
yeah, definitely. So I mean, in the sporting space specifically, we've been working with a number of different RSOs across the country. Sport Otago have been using it to track all the volunteers that are working in their events and kind of supporting the different clubs to build a bit of a sporting community. They've been exploring a lot of kind of job sharing roles between codes as people have had to restructure. So it kind of gives a bit of a hub for all of their sporting volunteers to see what's going on, and all of the different codes to be able to share roles, collaborate with each other, and kind of co-solve some of the problems in community. Similarly, in Sport Tasman, in the Nelson region where I'm based now, and we've been working with mainland football, with Nelson hockey, and just helping them kind of create an ecosystem where their individual clubs can kind of all work together. They had a scenario recently where they were all in a room and one of them said, "Oh, I'm looking for a club secretary for 15 hours a week," and another one of them said, "Oh, I'm looking for a club secretary for 15 hours a week." And through that power of collaboration, we've now got a 30-hour-a-week role that because they weren't talking and sharing before, none of them knew about it.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I guess so this is such a great platform, and you and I have been working on it for a little while. How can clubs get onto the platform, and what's the support that they can get?
Great. So they've got me, they've got you. It's basically it's a free tool that, with a wee bit of your time in the day, you can go on, create an account, and build your club. It takes maybe 30 minutes to get the club up and running on the platform, and from there, it's just about kind of digitizing some of your processes. So, it's really easy to upload all your current volunteers with a couple of clicks, get them onto the platform with you. Then you can start to track what they're doing, the hours they're doing. Really quick and easy to fire up a volunteering role, share that with Sport Waitakere, share that with all the groups in the wider West Auckland region. So yeah, you've got myself, we've got Javeed, and we're always available for an hour-long Zoom session or whatever's needed just to help you get up and running.
Yeah, so I guess just to kind of add on to what Alex is saying is we're using it very well in terms of our Active Asian Volunteer Program, and it's getting them into roles that are supporting them to support the community. So I guess, kind of thinking about attracting and retaining volunteers is, what's something that, if you were a volunteer administrator, what's something that you would work on to make sure that you can attract them? Maybe we look at attracting first, and then we look at retaining a little bit.
Yeah. So I think often if you're a volunteer looking for things to do, you want as much information as possible. And I think for quite a long time in the whole volunteering sector, there's just been this expectation that you put out a couple of sentences and people will come flooding to you. But I think a lot of volunteers there's a lot more competing for their attention now. They actually need to know what's going on. So if you can articulate exactly what they'll be doing, exactly what skills they'll be gaining by volunteering, exactly how many hours they're expected to contribute and what they're going to get out of it, I think the more information you can give to volunteers, the more chance you've got of them being able to make an informed decision, and not just kind of say, I'm keen, and then maybe change their mind, but know right from the start that if somebody is interested, they know what they're getting themselves in for or what they're committing to do.
So it's really about being quite clear and upfront about what they're required to do and where they're going to go and what they can achieve there.
Yeah, I think it's just putting everything out there. I think it's also giving away a bit of control. And I don't think we're good in New Zealand about giving control to the volunteers. We kind of want to keep control of who our volunteers are and who's doing what. But I think a lot of volunteers would rather be able to make the choice themselves as to what they sign up for instead of being told what they're going to be doing. So I think it's just about being open and inviting people in.
And then kind of on the flip side, like how do you feel that what's something a volunteer administrator could do to kind of retain volunteers and something?
Yeah, nice. I think there's some really cool things in terms of recognizing and rewarding volunteers that we're all starting to realize are quite a crucial part of the process. And I know in my experience, the places where I didn't feel recognized and cared for were the experiences that I didn't enjoy. And I think this kind of links nicely to the Be Collective platform about how we recognize volunteers, is that by using this system for your volunteer management, everybody who volunteers with you gets a verified record of all the skills they've gained by volunteering, all the hours they've done. And they get this all packaged into a CV, what we call a social CV. So just by using the system, they get this kind of verified record of their impact in the community. They can use that for job applications. They can use that to demonstrate their skill development if they're having to build hours towards a qualification or a coaching qualification or a uni qualification. That's all verified. So they're getting a recognition automatically by using this Be Collective system. And I think just being able to provide that to your community is a really powerful way to retain them when they haven't been getting that previously.
No, that's really cool. And I think you've given some really cool insights into obviously both sides of being a volunteer and obviously with this cool platform. And I'd like to thank you, Alex, for being part of our coffee chat here, whilst it's been virtual. I'm sure you'll have a coffee afterwards.
Yep.
But just for anyone watching, to get into the Be Collective platform, it's becollective.com, I believe.
It is.
And then obviously, if you need further support to kind of catch up, they've got help options on their website, or you reach out to us here at Sport Waitakere and we can definitely help you out there. So from us here, ka kite, and thank you very much for listening in, and thank you very much to Alex for your time for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Javeed. Thanks, everyone.